Thank you everyone for joining us this morning for Cooking with Brooke. Before we begin, I just want to turn this over to Carol. I have turned on the closed captioning, so you can activate that if you like. And without further ado, welcome Carol. Thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Carol Karp, the Executive Director. Here at Sharp Again, our mission is to educate and empower people to take charge of their cognitive health. We do that through many ways, including webinars like this, in-person presentations, articles and resources, and a very informative website. But by far, the most impactful offering is our small group coaching program. This program offers live education and support facilitated by a certified health coach. These groups meet via Zoom once a week for 6 weeks. During the small group program, we focus on 4 lifestyle areas which we know greatly affect cognition and which people have control over: stress, sleep, nutrition, and exercise. The cost of this program is $450, but through the generosity of our donors, the price is reduced to $99 for the 6 sessions plus 2 private sessions with a health coach. Our next program begins on Tuesday, July 16th at noon, and registration is open. If you're beginning to notice some memory impairment, or if you want to learn how to keep your brain sharp, this program is an excellent place to start. In addition to our small group coaching program, we also offer the Maintain Your Brain community program, which offers continuing support for our small group coaching graduates. To learn more about that program, email us at info@sharpagain.org. Our next free webinar is Brain Health 101. What does it take to maintain a healthy brain? So please join us on Tuesday, June 18th at noon to learn about the identifiable causes of memory loss and how you can address them to prevent, slow, and potentially reverse their effect. And for those of you who are going to put them in your calendar in advance, on August 29th at noon, we have a webinar on exercise to maximize brain health. Exercise physiologists from the Hospital for Special Surgery are going to join us to discuss the fundamentals of exercise, how to build a better foundation for longevity, and how to maximize your brain health. You will receive all this program information in an email tomorrow, along with the recording link for the webinar today and any resources that are referenced in Brooke's presentation. If you have questions during today's presentation, type them in the chat box and we will answer them as quickly as possible. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest, Brooke Lewy. Brooke Lewy is a chef, culinary consultant, and cookbook author. She currently works one-on-one with clients to help them eat the way they'd like to eat. Her main focus is meeting clients where they are, changing habits in a slow, sustainable way, and putting food first, as she believes that food is truly a source of joy and connection, and that anyone can feel empowered in the kitchen. Brooke started cooking professionally in 2012 at Delfina Restaurant in San Francisco's Mission District. After several years in a restaurant kitchen, she shifted her focus to publishing a cookbook, Vegetables on Fire. Brooke has a BA from Princeton University, a master's in international affairs from Columbia School of International and Public Affairs, and a certificate in culinary medicine from Harvard Medical School. It gives Sharp Again great pleasure to welcome Brooke Lewy, and thank you for joining us, Brooke.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so delighted to be here. As Carol said, I normally work one-on-one with people to help you eat the way that you would like to eat, and I'm so happy to be cooking with all of you today. I thought I would go through very quickly the Sharp Again guidelines for the MIND diet, and it really is pretty common sense, increasing leafy green vegetables, any vegetables, across the spectrum. I always tell my kids, eat the rainbow. Nuts, berries, beans, legumes, whole grains, fish, poultry, and extra virgin olive oil. So we will be hitting a lot of those today. There's also foods to avoid: red meat and processed meat, butter, margarine, cheese, sweets, and then fast food and fried food. So rather than focusing on what we can't have, I really like to focus on what we can increase in our diets. And as Carol said, I really believe in slow, sustainable changes. Like even if you just incorporate one of these foods per day, it will make a big difference for your health. And if you focus on one at a time and not trying to overhaul your whole diet, that is a much more successful way to go. So with that, I think we should get going. We are going to make a really big, beautiful salad that has lots of flavor and lots of textures, and will hopefully be really satisfying and healthy. The recipe is mostly make enough for one, but of course you could scale it up if you're cooking for more people. We're gonna get a lot done. So if you need me to slow down at any point or have any questions, feel free to ask or write them in the chat, and I will try to answer them as best I can. So with that, I think we should get started. So the first thing I would say if you're cooking along is to preheat your oven to 375 degrees. So I will wait a minute for anybody who wants to go do that. And then once that's done, we're going to move on to marinating the salmon. And this is one of my most go-to salmon recipes. A lot of the ingredients we use in the marinade, we're going to use over and over again in the other parts of the recipe as well. So you can keep them out. And all of these ingredients also are great ways to add a lot of flavor without adding a lot of extra fat or, some of those foods that might not be as good for us. And my whole thing is healthy food can be delicious. And if you add flavor and you make your food really satisfying with textures and colors, you won't be tempted to then go like eat a bag of chips or something like that. So here we go. So I have my salmon. I cut it into 2 pieces because we're marinating for a pretty short time. So it helps the fish absorb the marinade better, but you could marinate your fish starting, 4 hours before you're ready to eat it. Any amount of time you have between 4 hours and kind of when you're ready to cook is helpful. So to make our marinade, we'll just go through. I have soy sauce, 1/2 cup. I have sesame oil, 2 tablespoons. I'm just going to pour it right in my jar because I also don't like to get too many things dirty. Often I make this right in a measuring cup. I have 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. I know that the recipe calls for brown sugar. I often substitute maple syrup for brown sugar because it mixes in so easily. It's nice to have a liquid in there rather than trying to dissolve the sugar in there. So that's something you can always do. You just want a little bit of that sweetness and it'll help the salmon caramelize. And then I also have 2 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar. So here, I'll show you all my ingredients. Here's my soy sauce. If you're sensitive to gluten, you can use tamari. Just look where it says gluten-free. There's sesame oil here, maple syrup, and rice wine vinegar. So I'm going to pop the lid on here, give it a little shake up, and just pour it right over my salmon. And then I'm going to leave this on the counter so it can really absorb at room temperature. That'll work better right now. But, if I'm doing it more than half an hour, an hour, I would pop it in the fridge. Let's get these out of the way. The next thing that we are going to do is get a couple of sheet pans ready. So I have 3 behind me. You guys should do 2 because one will be for nut and seed clusters. And then the next one will be either for the salmon or the chickpeas. I don't think anybody probably is doing both. So sheet pan, any old kind, it can be 9 by 13, whatever you have. And then I'm just lining with a piece of parchment paper because it makes it much easier to clean and keeps things from sticking. So I'm going to pop that back over here. Hopefully everybody's good. And we can move right along to our seed clusters. Will anybody raise a hand if I'm going too fast or? Okay. So this is a great trick for making things crispy without adding a bunch of oil. So I'm going to separate out the egg white and keep the egg white in the bowl. And you can use any nuts or seeds. And once you make these seed clusters, they last for a long time. I would say at least a week in an airtight container at room temperature. Let me get rid of my yolk. And then I'm just going to whisk up the egg whites just to loosen them up a little bit. You just want to whisk them until you get sort of bubbly. I'll show you when we get there. We're not making like a meringue or anything. Almost there. And we're just going to use this to sort of coat the seeds and get them a little crispier. You, of course, you could just toast your nuts normally, stick them on a sheet pan in the oven or even in a pan, a dry skillet, that all works. These are just like a little more fun. You can add all kinds of seasonings. The egg white will carry it through. You can always add herbs. Rosemary is great, paprika, any spices that you like. You could take them sort of in a sweet direction and add cinnamon. So it's just a really versatile way to get more nuts and seeds into your diet. So I have a mix, you can see here, of walnuts, pumpkin seeds, and then they've all gone to the bottom, but I also have some black sesame seeds in here just because they look pretty, and add some of that nice sesame flavor. So all of these nuts and seeds are great for brain health. And they also add so much great texture to salads. They kind of take it from like a boring lettuce leaf salad to something like much more interesting. And you'll see how easy it is to add this in. So I'm just mixing my seeds into my egg white, making sure that they're all coated. You can see it's kind of like, they're all wet. And I'm gonna grab my cheat tray. Dump those on here. And spread them out. And I happen to use salted pumpkin seeds. That's what I had. But if I was not, I probably would add a pinch of salt too.
Could you move the bowl so we can see what you're doing?
Yes. Sorry.
Thank you. I hope you don't mind me.
So I'm just trying to flatten these out into kind of an even layer.
Brooke, there was a question about how many cups of seeds should you use?
Sorry, it's in the recipe. I generally used about 1 cup-ish. I would say for 1 egg white, you could go anywhere between 1 cup and 1.5 cups. It's pretty flexible. And if you want to make a bigger batch, I would just add another egg white. Okay, so you can see my nuts and seeds are pretty much in an even layer, and I'm just going to pop them in the oven. And I'm going to set a timer because otherwise I will forget to take them out. So I'm going to set a timer for 12 minutes. And after that, they should be sort of like dry and crisp. And they will wind up, I'll show you these ones when they come out, but they'll wind up sort of looking like this, you know, kind of a combination of nuts and seeds, and they look really pretty on top of the salad and are a great snack too.
I just added the link to the recipes in the chat box.
Oh,
if
great.
anyone wants to open it up.
And actually a really great snack is if you use the egg white and nuts and everything bagel seasoning. It really makes a delicious snack without adding a lot of foods that are not so great for us. So after the seed clusters, from there, we're going to make a carrot ginger dressing. So I think another really important component to a very delicious salad is an interesting dressing. This dressing is really similar to what you would get at a Japanese restaurant on the salad that they make. It's pretty simple. So we have our blender. I'm using a Vitamix. You could use a mini food processor would work great as well. So whatever, or a regular food processor, a blender just makes it a little more smooth. So same thing, we'll go through all our ingredients. We're gonna add 1 carrot that's roughly chopped. We're going to add in here, I have 1 piece of ginger. It's about 2 inches. 1/4 of a shallot, or you could use a similar size piece of red onion or white onion, just a little, I would say maybe a tablespoon. And then I also have 2 tablespoons of miso paste. So if you're not familiar with miso paste, it can come in a lot of different containers. This is a Wegmans brand one. It can come like this, in a pouch kind of thing. There's many different kinds. They range from white to yellow to red. The white is the most mild. That's what we're using, but you can use any kind, just sort of adjust to your preference if you want it to have sort of a stronger, funkier flavor. And again, miso is a great way to add a lot of flavor without adding a lot of fat or calories or something like that. So I'm just going to scoot this into the blender. And then similar to our fish marinade, I have rice vinegar, and I have sesame oil. Get it all out of here. I have maple syrup again. You could use brown sugar, you could use some honey, you could use agave, just something to give it a little bit of sweetness. And then I have a 1/4 cup of olive oil. And we're gonna add just a couple tablespoons of water. And I'm not gonna add any salt yet, but you could add a pinch of salt, or you can wait and taste it at the end and see if you need more. So you put your blender, put the top on, turn it on. I'm not gonna do that because it'll be super loud. But basically, you just wanna blend it until it's really smooth. And at the end, you get this orange dressing that looks, as I said, very much like what you would get at a Japanese restaurant. If this feels like a pretty good consistency to me, you can always add more water. You can add a little bit of oil. You just want it really smooth. I'm going to give my hands a little rinse. So if we're thinking about the foods that are good for us, we've already gotten in carrots, nuts, olive oil. We're working through. So I'm just gonna move this out of the way. And move these out of the way. And I think I'll take a minute to pause and just make sure everybody's good. All right. So we have our seeds working, we have our dressing made, we have our salmon marinating. The next thing that we are going to do is work on chickpeas, because if you are a vegetarian or you know somebody who's a vegetarian, it's great to have a vegetarian option. Or if you want to do all of it, you can make the salmon with the chickpeas and the nuts. So let's grab these. Now, a lot of ingredients are kind of the same again. Again, we're using miso paste. Does anybody have any questions about any of the ingredients?
I don't see any questions.
No
in
questions.
the-
Okay, great. Everybody's familiar with these ingredients, so that's awesome.
Mhm.
So as an alternative to the salmon, we're going to make these miso chickpeas. So in this bowl, I have miso. I have a little bit of sesame oil, a tablespoon, which is here, and then some more maple syrup. So again, we're just echoing these flavors. They'll help pull each other out. And we're just trying to add ways to add protein, make the salad really very satisfying. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix this up.
Brooke, there was a comment about for the ginger, you don't strip the ginger, you leave the skin on. You
No,
just-
I mean, this is getting pureed, and so I don't worry too much about it. Peeling ginger's annoying. So I just leave it, but of course you could peel it if you prefer to. And it sort of depends, you know, my piece of ginger was pretty clean. Sometimes it's like kind of gnarly and I'll cut off those bits that seem really dry. But this piece of ginger that I had was pretty clean. So I just kind of left it as is. All right, so I'm just mixing these ingredients together. It's forming kind of a paste. Here I have 1 can of chickpeas, one 15-ounce can of chickpeas that's been drained and rinsed. And sort of left to dry a little bit. And I'm gonna add these right into the bowl. And just, I'm gonna switch to my spatula. And just kind of get them coated in this mixture. And these also make a great snack. They're a little chewy, a little crispy. They don't last quite as long as the seeds do, but they are very delicious. And that miso has kind of that umami flavor that's really satisfying. So they're looking like this. They're kind of well coated. I'm gonna get another sheet tray. And same as the seeds, I'm just going to dump them out. And spread them.
I have a quick question. How
Yeah.
long does miso last in the refrigerator?
Great question. Forever nearly. It really will last for a long time. And it's great in so many things. I mean, you can see we just used it in this dressing. We're coating the chickpeas with it. One of my favorite salads in the summer is a miso corn salad. So you kind of smush some miso with butter and then use that to coat corn kernels and then put in a whole bunch of crunchy vegetables and herbs. And it is like one of my go-to summer recipes.
That sounds good.
It's really good. I can send that recipe too. Yeah, once you have it, you find that lots of different ways to use it. And of course, you can always make a miso soup, which really is as easy as like dissolving some miso in some water to make broth. So it's a pretty versatile ingredient and it really does last forever. So I'm gonna pop these in the oven as well. These will take longer, closer to 20-ish minutes. The longer you let them go, the sort of the crispier they'll get. So we'll pop them in and let them go for 20 minutes and check them in a sec. So I'm gonna pop these in, I'll be right back. And I'm just gonna show you my seeds because they're almost there. So you can see they're looking kind of brown around the edges. And then the egg white is sort of firming up. So I think they're not quite done yet. It's a little tacky and there's still kind of 2 minutes left on the timer. But I just wanted to show you, like, if you try and break them apart, it's still a little sticky in there. So I'm gonna pop them back in. But you can see sort of what it looks like in process. All right. The next thing that we are going to do is start prepping our vegetables. So let's pull this over here. Of course, you could buy a box of lettuce, you know, a spring mix, spinach, whatever you like. It's all great. I tend to like to buy individual lettuces and mix them up. I think to eat, it's texturally more interesting. And all these things last longer than a box of lettuce. But of course, do what works for you. So I have 1 head of little gem lettuce. I have this purple cabbage, which I almost always have around. I have a fennel bulb, cucumber, I have some lacinato kale or dino kale and a couple different kinds of radishes. So I'm gonna grab my bowl. I'm gonna give these things a quick chop. I start with the lettuce. It's also nice, you know, people eat with their eyes so at first. So if you combine the colors, it just kind of looks nice. So I'll do that first. There's some not so beautiful bits in here. Little gem is like romaine. It's like really crunchy and bright. We'll do our kale next, and I'm just cutting it, you know, into little ribbons. You obviously could add any kind of veggies that you like in here. Snap peas would be great. Snow peas, you could cook some asparagus. I mean, really, it's a salad, the sky's the limit. And we talked a little bit about whole grains. You could always add some brown rice or farro or some other kind of grain. So that was my timer for my nut and seed clusters. It's been 2 minutes since we checked. So I'm gonna go check again and see how they're doing. They're looking pretty good. I think that it's still, if I feel in the middle where the egg white kind of cooled, it's still a little bit tacky. So I'm gonna put them in for 2 more minutes. And then I think they will be perfect. Because you can see the ones on the edges are breaking easily, they're crispy, and they'll crisp up a little bit more as they cool. So I'm gonna pop these back in just for 2 more minutes. And set my timer. Because then if I don't, I'll forget they're in the oven. And I'll continue with my veggies. So I've done my gems. I'm gonna cut off a piece of this big cabbage. And of course, all of these different veggies, the different colors have different vitamins and antioxidants. So let's cut that up. And you can see it's just starting to look really pretty in the bowl. We'll do our cucumber. I like these little Persian cut cucumbers. I think it's nice to have not so many seeds. Get those in the bowl. Radishes. And of course, the summertime is such a great time to take advantage of all the produce that's around. I don't know if you have farmers markets near you. It's just great. Here, one more radish. A little chop. And then this fennel bulb, I think we'll cut off a cheek this way. It's in your way, you can't see. You give this a little chop. And as I said, you know, this is all kind of for one person, but you could absolutely scale it up, make it for a crowd, make it for dinner, adjust it how you'd like. We'll move this out of the way. All right, that's my timer for my seed clusters. I'm sure they're gonna be done now. So let me go grab those. So these are done. You can see they're pretty uniformly brown. We're gonna let them cool a minute. Let's just set them to the side. I'm back there. And you can see my the base of my salad has a whole bunch of different colors. If you wanted to prepare this in advance, which is something people always ask, you could prepare it like this. I would cover it with a wet paper towel or damp paper towel, stick it in the fridge until you're ready to use it. The seed clusters will last for a week in an airtight container on the counter. So that is good to go. The dressing also will last for about 2 weeks in the fridge. So you could, we're doing this all right now quickly, but you could stretch this out. You could do it over a number of days. You could batch it for the week. So you could eat this for lunch for a week if you wanted to, and just make life easier for yourself. So now that our seed clusters are out, I'm actually going to turn the temperature on my oven up from 375 to 425. So I'm going to do that. Because I find that that works well for the salmon. So I think at this point we are ready to get that in the oven. So as I said, I make this salmon all the time. I have 3 small kids. They love it. I often cut it into even smaller pieces so it can caramelize more around the outside. And this marinade is also a great all-purpose marinade for chicken. It works great for flank steak. It's just like a really great all-purpose marinade. It's super easy to throw together. You could even keep a jar of it in your fridge. And I find that it has less sort of preservatives and additives than buying like a kind of like soy vey marinade, which has sort of a similar flavor. This is just like, exactly what's in there. It's easy to put together. You can see we didn't use a million ingredients. So that's it. Let's get our last sheet tray. Same thing. Sheet tray, parchment. I'm gonna pull this out. You can see it's a little darker. The fish is like firmed up a little bit. So we'll pull that out. The other thing that I sometimes do with the marinade, which I'm not gonna do today, is put it in a small saucepan and reduce it down a little bit. And then you can almost use it like a glaze afterward. I usually do that more if I'm serving the salmon like with rice, and it's nice to have some extra sauce. And because it's, you would never do that if you were using it with chicken, but because it's fish, which technically you could eat raw, I'm not worried about any health concerns or anything like that. Plus I hate to waste it. So we're just going to put that aside for now, but know that you could always do that. So I just put my fish on the sheet tray, skin side down. I'm going to wait for my oven to come up to 425, which would probably just take a minute. And then I usually cook salmon for about 12 minutes, but you could, this size piece. I have a 7-ounce piece, which is good for one. You could also do this on a grill. When I do it on a grill, I usually just put it on a piece of foil, put the whole foil on the grill. And then when you're ready to eat it, you can just lift it right off the skin. It's a super easy, great summer grilling recipe. All right, so my oven is up to temperature and I'm going to stick this in. And again, I'm going to set my timer. And I checked on my chickpeas. They're looking good. They're looking like they're drying out a little bit. I guess I'll show you. Here you can see they look drier than when we put them in, but they're not really even close to done. We want to get them like really nice and crisp. So I'm going to stick them back in the oven. Maybe I'll give them a little toss. And then while we're waiting for these, for the fish and the chickpeas to finish, I was thinking we could talk about some other really brain healthy recipes. I know included in the registration page, you had a recipe for you were given a recipe for overnight oats, which is something that I eat for breakfast most mornings. I've converted a lot of people to eating overnight oats. It is a great way to start your day with whole grains and nuts and seeds. It's basically a combination of oats and walnuts and coconut and dates and chia seeds and flax seeds. that you cover with any kind of milk that you like. I like to use oat milk. You can make one batch for the week, and then in the morning it's super quick to scoop it out and put it in a bowl and enjoy it with bananas, or it's great with berries. It's just a really easy, quick, healthy way to get a lot of these foods we want to try to incorporate more of in our diets. So I can't recommend that more. And then in terms of other ways to sort of, I call it like crowding in these good for you foods, so you don't feel like you have to restrict yourself. It's great to have beans on hand for lunch, dried beans, canned beans. You know, whole grains are great to play around with. Maybe you're used to cooking rice, you can always try cooking quinoa or farro or something that's a little different, just to keep things interesting. I think as long as you're playing around with different flavors and textures, like it's all just food and nothing's gonna break. You can just like play and feel confident trying new things, trying different things, trying a recipe you haven't made before. You know, if there's some food that you love that you don't want to eat too much of, you can always swap out. You know, say you always make meat sauce with beef, you could try it with ground turkey instead, and learn that it's not that different. You know, that those flavors carry through. So, anybody have any questions sort of on other ways? Yeah.
I have a question about chickpeas. Do
Yeah.
you tend to use canned chickpeas, or do you tend to use dried and cook them?
I use a mix. It depends sort of, I would say if I'm making myself like a quick lunch, you know, if I'm making a salad for myself for lunch, I might not go do all of this every day. And I very often would, you know, make this part because as you could see, that didn't take too long. And then often I will open a can of chickpeas and throw it on top. So it's very satisfying. But if I'm making, you know, if my dinner is like a pot of chickpeas or something, which often I'll do with like greens, you know, beans and greens are a great combo with a little bit of Parmesan or olive oil. You know, then I'll work harder I'll soak them, I'll cook them from scratch. Or the other thing that I love to do in the winter time is cook a huge pot of beans and then use that broth, the water that I cook the beans in, as the base for my soup. So I'll cook a huge pot of, you know, I'll cook a pound of beans. I really like the big lima beans or gigante beans. I didn't bring any with me, but if you cook those and you season the water well, then you can use that as your broth. And it makes a really healthy, satisfying soup. And I probably do it at least once a week, you know, throw in whatever vegetables I have around. Sometimes I switch up the flavor, make it sort of like more tomato-y or more, I don't know, different flavor, what more like Middle Eastern, and we'll add more of those spices. But it's super versatile, and soups are a really easy, great way to get tons of vegetables and beans and whole grains into your diet. Also in a really easy way. I don't know, you can tell I have 3 little kids, and so I'm always looking for ways that I can get healthy meals together and also sort of nourish myself without putting too much effort in the middle of my work day, or I just want to always have these things ready. So I don't have to think so much about it every time I'm going to the refrigerator. So for me, it's great to have these building blocks ready at all times. So I'm not, you know, ordering in or choosing things that might not be as healthy for my body.
And not throwing away food that's
that too.
Sticking around your refrigerator a while.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
I was told by somebody recently, because I have oatmeal a lot, or use the oatmeal milk as well. She said that it's very bloating.
Oh.
And I was wondering if I heard that right. I have to go back and ask, but I was wondering if you've heard that or find that to be.
I don't know. Oatmeal itself?
I think so. I think because I wrote it down in my chart. was eating, and
I
she
wonder if it just, I haven't heard that. I can definitely look into it. I wonder if it's just because it has so much fiber that
Yeah.
it takes a long time for your body to digest. That would be my guess.
said, thank you.
I
I'm
don't know.
curious at this point.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I haven't found that personally. I found it pretty easy and I like the consistency of it more than like almond milk.
That's good.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's especially like for coffee, it's a little creamier. But I definitely will look into that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Any other questions? Is anybody stuck on anything, or has everybody been able to cook along in real time? Yes, no? Okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. In terms of other ingredients that I always keep around, you know, I always have sort of this Asian section in my pantry. I turn to it all the time. I also love to have beans. To go back to your question, I always have a selection of canned beans and also a bunch of dried beans, because there's advantages to both. You know, nothing, if you're in a pinch, nothing works better than a can of chickpeas. And actually there's a cookbook author that I love, called Julia Turshen, and she even has a whole chart in the back of her book that's like, if you have a can of chickpeas, here's 7 ways you can have dinner. So they're super versatile. And then what else do I have? Canned tomatoes, always. Pasta, you know, different kinds of pasta, whole grain pasta. There's a bunch of different kinds of gluten-free pasta now, if that's a consideration for you.
It's really easy to find low sodium canned
Yeah,
goods now,
yeah.
which is nice.
There's so many more options for everything, I think.
Yeah, and organic
Mhm.
canned
Yeah.
foods.
Yeah. So I'm gonna check on our salmon and see how it's going, and our chickpeas, because I didn't set a timer for the chickpeas. The salmon is going, it needs a few more minutes. The chickpeas, you can see on the edges are like just starting to brown. We want them all to kind of look like this. So I'm gonna pop this back in. And we will check back in a few minutes. Yeah. And I also, I mean, I could put together a whole list of delicious salad dressings that I like that really make ordinary salads feel a little more special, especially going into the summer. But I love this carrot ginger dressing. I have another miso dressing that I really like that mixes miso and tahini, which is another great way to add flavor and sort of those healthy fats from seeds without relying on dairy. I'll show you what I mean. This is actually one of my favorite brands because it's all women owned, but it is really creamy and nutty. And it's also great if you have a recipe that uses peanut butter and has somebody who can't use nuts, it fills that need as well. I also like to use it on noodles. You can make sort of like a peanut butter tahini sauce for noodles. I really like yogurt-based dressings. Any recipe that calls for mayo, I often swap out plain Greek yogurt for the mayo. It adds the same sort of creaminess, but without that oil. And so that is another great swap to make. Those are my main go-tos. I'm trying to think of what else I'm forgetting. This is a great time of year for like a green goddess kind of dressing where you can just put a bunch of herbs into a blender with some yogurt and oil and salt and pepper and a little vinegar, and that turns into a great dip for all those fresh veggies that are coming up. Or
I like to throw avocado in that one too.
yeah, Yeah, it's great. That makes it even creamier.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Does anybody have a favorite recipe that they think is not so great for them that they would want some guidance on how to sort of lighten it up a little bit? What's that?
Oh, sorry, my husband was walking out the door making noise. Um, uh, Pasta dishes, especially pasta casseroles, big
Okay.
ziti.
Sure. Oh, that's my timer for the fish. Hold that thought. Okay. So if you look at the fish, if you touch it, it's much firmer than it was. It's lightly browned. The skin is kind of sizzling. So I think that this is good to go. If you wanted to, you could throw it under the broiler and get the top even more caramelized, but I think this looks good to me. I'd be happy to eat it this way. So I'm gonna let it cool for a minute and go back to the pasta casserole dishes. My tip for something like that is to not try to swap out too many of the ingredients that make it satisfying. So like I wouldn't go to vegan cheese. Instead, I would try and add as many vegetables as possible. So just kind of adjust the ratio of, if you think of it normally as like a pasta dish that's 85% pasta with some vegetables, try and make it closer to 50-50 or something like that. And with a pasta casserole dish, I think rather than focusing on all of the cheese and cream or whatever that goes into the dish, just focus more on getting that nice layer on top, because I think what we really love about those is sort of that crispy cheese layer on the top. So I would say if you were trying to, especially in the summer when you could add in like eggplant and tomatoes and all these nice leafy greens. And for pasta dishes in general, you can add in so many vegetables and beans and things and still have that pasta too.
Yeah. I recently started throwing a big head of kale in with the sauce, which I make with ground chicken or turkey. My stomach can't handle beef.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that makes it a little less heavy.
Yeah. And all those things that you're simmering for a long time with a lot of, strong flavors, it can really take a lot of vegetables.
Brooke, is there any way of making mashed potatoes healthier? That's such a odd dish for so many people.
Yeah, that's a tough one because you really want it.
Ellie Krieger uses cauliflower and potatoes.
Oh, that's a great spot.
Um,
Yeah, or even like Jerusalem artichokes, which are kind of more like tubers. The cauliflower is a great suggestion.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, just eat a little, like make it exactly the way you want it, your perfect mashed potatoes, and then just like, don't go crazy, have a little bit, and if you think about your plate, have it be a little mashed potatoes and then mostly other stuff. Because I also think if you don't make things the way that you're craving them, you're gonna try and fulfill that craving with something else. But cauliflower is a great idea if you do a mix of cauliflower and potato or something. Or even, this has a totally different flavor profile, but sweet potatoes are great too. Mashed sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we have all the components of our salad. If whoever's making the chickpeas, mine still need more time. I imagine yours do too, maybe another 10 minutes or so. But I have a batch here that's done. They're sort of more uniformly roasty. And we can keep checking ours as we go. But just to assemble the salad and put it all together, we have our greens and our veggies. Again, you could really add anything you would like. I'm gonna bring my salmon back over and grab a spatula. And I'm just gonna peel the skin off. Mine didn't get crispy. If you want to work harder to get your skin crispy, you can do that. So I'll put that there. I'm gonna hold off on the chickpeas for now. I have my seed clusters. Actually, I'm gonna do my dressing first. For the seed clusters stay as crispy as possible. I'm gonna drizzle my dressing over. And I think the orange looks really nice against the colorful vegetables. Also, I think you can be pretty generous with this dressing considering it's mostly made out of carrot. And then I'm gonna add my seed clusters on top and break them up a little bit. You know, I want some chunks, but not too, you still want it to like feel nice on your fork as you're getting a combo bite, as my kids would say.
How
So-
old are your kids?
3, 7, and almost 10.
Ah.
Yeah. And so here you have it. You have this beautiful salad that has all different colors, many different textures, a lot of protein, a lot of that brain healthy fat. And it's ready to go. And I personally think that this is a really nice salad if you're having people over. As I said, you can kind of do the component parts at different times. But it is pretty easy to do, especially since we're using a lot of the same ingredients in the different pieces. So there we go. We did it.
It's gorgeous.
Thanks. I hope that many of you are eating along too. I can't see you. But I hope that you have a delicious lunch for this day also. Oh, I should also say the salmon is nice cold too, if you wind up having leftovers or having it the next day or something like that. It's great.
You mentioned broiling it up for a minute to
Yeah.
give it some color. I don't like to broil stuff because it makes the oven dirty and I'm lazy and don't want to clean it.
Do you find that it splatters?
Yeah.
No, I never thought about that.
Oh,
I suppose that
but
happens. Yeah.
just
Well,
about a
really, now that the weather is nice, I mean, grilling is like by far the easiest, least cleanup way to go. Yeah. And so if you grill the salmon and you do it on the foil, as I suggested, the skin will stick to the foil, but you can stick your spatula right between the skin and the fish and just lift it up.
Yeah.
And it makes it really easy.
I just bought a combination pizza oven grill,
Oh, cool.
Cuisinart.
Very
So
cool.
I'm gonna try it out this weekend.
Yeah.
Haven't had a grill for a few years.
Yeah. It's so easy. It just the lack of cleanup of having, pans to scrub or even,
Mhm.
I mean, this is pretty easy throwing away parchment, but it's really nice. It's really nice to not have to scrub any pans. And nice to be outside too as the weather turns.
Yes, yeah. There is a new message. Oh, sorry, I was late. What ingredients went into the dressing? And what did you season the chickpeas with?
Yeah, so the dressing was carrot, shallot, ginger, sesame oil, miso, and maple syrup, and a little water. And then that just got blended up. And the recipe, you should have access to the recipes too.
Yeah.
And then the chickpeas just got tossed with, I mixed together miso and sesame oil and maple syrup, and then coated the chickpeas in that. So, and then stuck them in the oven.
I think I know what I'm making for dinner.
Where are the recipes? Joan, where did they're on that registration page, but then did you also drop them in the
Right,
chat?
they are in the chat. There's a link in the chat to the recipes. And then the recap that I send out probably tomorrow morning, I will include the PDF there as well. as well as the information about our upcoming programs, all of Brooke's information, and then some of the things that you talked about, the Mind Diet. I have a PDF of that. I'll see if you can, Julia Turson,
Yes.
is that her name? Terson?
Yeah, I think I have the book. Hold on one second. I don't have it here, but I can send it to you so you can send it out with the information.
Okay.
tomorrow.
Perfect.
Yeah, her
perfect.
book is great. And I guess I can just say a little bit more about what I do. So I'm a culinary coach, and I generally work with people one-on-one to help them achieve their own food goals. So whether whether you're interested in incorporating more of these brain healthy foods and need recipes or shopping lists, I can help you with that. Or if you've gone through, a lot of my clients have gone through either a medical diagnosis or a major life transition. So they're empty nesting, or somebody in their house has a new diagnosis where they can't eat salt or have become gluten intolerant or something like that. And you need to figure out a new way of cooking. I work with a lot of people who go through those things, and we meet one-on-one. I work mostly through Zoom, but depending on where you are, we could work in person. I will reorganize people's pantries to make them easy and accessible. A lot of the time food is about food, but it's also about a lot of other things too. And I really believe it should not be intimidating. It should not be isolating. I think a lot of the time when people get a new food diagnosis, it's like, oh, I can't go out to dinner anymore, or I can't go to somebody's house for dinner, or I require too many, special accommodations. And I really try and take that feeling away, because I really think food is a place for community and joy. And, you should be able to eat the mashed potato at Thanksgiving without it sending you into, giving you anxiety. And so, like everything else, it's about balance and just making your body feel good. So I can help with all of that.
MC said TBI 3 times. I'm guessing that's traumatic brain injury. Is that right?
I don't know.
Maria. Yes.
Are you curious what to eat after going through a traumatic brain injury, or?
Right. Well, I have diabetes type 2 as well. But so with the traumatic brain injuries, my numbers with the sugar levels go up really high every time I have one. In February, I was in a car accident, and again, I have a traumatic brain injury. So the doctor definitely said, and I'm not sure how I got connected to you guys or to this class. And again, I'm so sorry I'm late. But I'm definitely trying to figure out through food how to help my brain better,
Absolutely.
So.
Well, my email is on my website. If you want to get in touch with me, I can help as best I can.
And Maria, you'll get that
Okay,
information in the recap.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was anybody eating? How is everything? Did anybody cook along in real time?
Raise your hand if you did.
There's a lot of cameras off, which is fine.
I just thought of this. Don't forget your chickpeas in the oven.
Thank you. It's hard. Those are hard to,
Hard to overcook.
hard to overcook. They're still not as dry as I would hope, but they're getting there. And you could always taste one and decide you're ready. But I think I'll keep mine going a little bit. I really want them to get crispy. But if you're hungry and ready to eat, you definitely can pull yours out. Thank you for the reminder, though. I'm going to set another timer. Roasted chickpeas are another favorite snack and salad added of mine. And if you toss them with a little olive oil and truly whatever spices you like, they're great with smoked paprika. And they really get crispy. It's like a great snack to have like anytime, because it's
Yeah.
really satisfying and has a lot of fiber and protein, and it has that sort of like crunchy, salty thing that we're so often looking for in snacks, without going like for chips or crackers or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any other questions? I don't know.
No, all good.
I think so.
Feel free to reach out, you know, if anybody winds up making these recipes after today and you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I will absolutely respond.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Carol, are you still there? Yeah.
I'm still there. Brooke, thank you so much. It was really incredible. The food looks incredible. Gonna definitely know what we're having for dinner tomorrow night. It really looks, really appreciate everything. And I love the idea of eating with our eyes, you know,
Yeah.
that how things should look appealing. And that definitely, I keep drooling looking at them. And it was so easy. I mean, you showed how you can do this in 1 hour. You can make an incredibly
Yeah.
healthy, delicious meal. So thank you so much
Of course, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
coming today. And, you know, hopefully Brooke will be coming back. We hope in the fall to do another presentation, and we'll come up with a fall recipe.
Yep.
Thank you everyone for coming
Great.
today.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Brooke.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna stop our recording.